fingers into this pen through the ink with which I jot this down. In this moment, I realize I've become a prisoner of my talent. Yes, I say talent not with vanity. I say talent because in days such as this, it ceases to be a privilege. It turns into a jail cell I've tried to break from, but each time I attempt to escape, I fall right back harder. Now I realize this was never my decision to make or to change. I am part of a separate entity of spirits who live by the pen. We teach, we correct, we rearrange, we give thoughts, opinions, and ideas wings with which to fly. And so, at a time like this, when these emotions are running high and screaming for release, and my entire being feels like was created for this, I know that this is not a gift. This is an obligation.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okela, talking to Mr. Peter Kagai, who is a poet, a writer, a theater writer, and a drama writer. That's the man in the studio today on Creative Industry Talk. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
I want to just remind everyone out there that we're live on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Go there, share it far and wide. And I want to take a moment, Peter, to just read a couple of questions coming in from people in the diaspora here. I'll start with one person in Germany. Eddie Okela, thank you very much for bringing my OB to the show. That guy, I was with him in school, and the story he's talked about is true. He's always been a bookwormer. Not little wonder he's ended up as a writer.
OB, yes, what's up? Good to hear from you.
Yes, and another one here. So I got another lady here called Susan, all the way in the US. I stayed up the moment I watched, and I read that Peter was coming into the program. Thank you very much. Busoga, oh yeah!
Oh yeah!
And of course, I want to read a 2 or 3 more questions. There's somebody in London says, Eddie Okela, thank you very much for bringing Mr. Peter Kagai on the show. I'm a writer, and I wish we could amplify what Peter just said before we went for a break. We writers are always lazy. Those who say they are writers and cannot write constantly or cannot even write 3 or 4 pages daily are not writers. A writer worth their salt must always write at least 3 poems a day, and if you are writing a book, you must not go more than 2 years without writing a book. In a year, you should have written at least 2 books, even if you have not published. Wow.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
We got some writers out there who are coming. This one is coming from the British Council in Kampala. My name is Susan. I work with British Council in Kampala. Thank you very much. I know that guy. He's a great, talented guy. We've worked with him before. Shout out to Peter Ngobi. The words, man, if you're not a writer, if you're waiting for inspiration, you're a waiter. I don't want to be a waiter anymore. Well, Peter, I guess we got some love coming out from people there. Share your kisses and disses coming to us. We want to hear it. I've got a very strange Ugandan sending a message from Denmark, one of the universities there. I live and work in Denmark, and of course, I'm a Ugandan, but thank you very much, Peter, for coming to the show today. I love what you're saying. I think if we continue to amplify our voice to say, instead of waiting for government to yambe, creatives should always hold their power back. That's what Peter is saying. A creative mind is a mind that is bigger than a politician. Politicians are not creative. They use the creatives to move forward. What Peter is saying is true. So why then are we waiting for these guys to tell us what to do? Yet we should be telling them what to do. In our writing, you can write a poem, you can write a story to address your member of parliament or your LC or whoever you want, or the leader in your society, and they will listen to you because people will always relate to what you are saying, which they usually don't pay attention to. Thank you very much, Creative Industry Talk, for bringing such great, interesting minds to the show. Peter, over to you. I think you can see that a lot of people were reaching out, are talking about the same thing, making this possible and allowing this opportunity to come to people. I want to take you to your next question as we hasten to the close of the show. Peter, what would you say is your interesting writing quirk?
What quirk?
Yes.
Oh, what do you mean quirk? If you don't mind me asking.
The word quirk is Quirk.
Ah.
Yes, the one that you poets likes to use the most.
Quirk.
Yes. What is your most interesting, what I would say, the most interesting writing time of the day?
I'll break
it down that way, yes.
Okay, I write anytime.
Okay.
The point is, when do I edit?
That's where you've got the quirk, yes.
My quirk is at 3 a.m.
Okay.
I believe in the night. I believe in the quietness. When the dog feels like the world is fast asleep, and you attend. I mean, when silence speaks to you. Yeah. But for me, the effort in writing, actually, the great work in writing is not in the writing itself.
Yeah.
It is in the polishing of the writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can even write a poem right now, off air. I can think of lines. But now the whole idea of now, interrogating the thoughts, developing the patterns you wanted to have, thinking of, the listening audience, all those, 3 a.m.
Wow. And my next question is, how do books get published? This is a question that came in from somebody. A viewer wrote and say, can you ask him how do books of poets get published?
Let me just break down. Okay, two ways. There is self-publishing, and then there is traditional publishing. Self-publishing is where the writer wants to do it themselves. You want to be in control of the production process from the word get-go up to the end point. So from the word get-go, I mean from preparing the manuscript to printing the book at the end of it all. So, but the processes are simple. So you develop a manuscript. Now, according to Makerere University, and I'm giving a standard that at least is that can be publicly interrogated.
Yes.
According to Makerere University, your manuscript should have about 30 poems. At least 30 poems. Then after that, you take the work to an editor. And then that editor is the person who helps you to polish it up to make sure that it is legible and it is worthy being consumed by readers. Then after that, the manuscript is forwarded to the designers, the layout designers and cover and designers and illustrators if you wanted to have some pictures. Then you have to go to the Uganda Society Library to get the international standard book number. It is only 30,000 shillings. It is that barcode that each book should have, so that it can be internationally sold in all public places and be catalogued in all libraries. Then after that, the book goes to printing. You have to find the appropriate printers for you. And of course, there are the proofreaders that you also have to hire. Then after the book has been printed, now the book has to be sold to the market. So now thinking about distributing the book and making and giving it visibility. And that's it. Now that is a process that you can do as an individual. You can hire people to give you those services. You can even have your own logo that you'd want to attach to your books. There is that. The second process is where you find a publisher who does this work on a daily, and what you do is you sell them your manuscript, or you come up with a legal arrangement where you become co-owners of the copyright in that work.
Wow. Peter, there's a book up there called The God Prayers.
Yes.
Can you take us through The God Prayers and actually give us one of the poem in that book?
So The God Prayers is is a poetry collection written by Ita Patience Mbeki. Mbeki she's now a student, a PhD student at Makerere Institute of Social Research.
Yeah.
But by the time we published it, she was a teacher at King's College, Bududu. So what we were doing then was promoting literature among young people by encouraging their teachers to also write.
Wow.
Because the idea was if the students see their teachers publishing, then they would also want to they'll be more confident to also think of taking on publishing.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I don't have all the poems in that book offhand,
Okay.
but I can tell you about a poem there that I like.
Yes.
There is a poem in there that I like that is called of absentee wives and mothering housemaids,
yes.
where she is an author.
Yeah.
She is a woman who is talking about why I like this poem. She's talking about how the modern day woman today has abandoned her domestic responsibilities to the house help.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And so and you see how house helps become wives and mothers in their homes, where they're replacing the role of actually the wife, because the wife has also become a man.
Yeah.
So I really liked that poem in that book.
And in the next book, which you have out there, I mean, if you just put that book up quickly,
Yes.
Ungodly Hour. What do you mean by Ungodly Hour? And what is this? This is a Kitara Nation Poetry
Yes.
Series 4.
Yes, now, Ungodly Hour, this is a collection of poems by students from Mount St. Mary's College, Namagunga.
Yeah.
Like I said, this project that we're running of publishing these books was about promoting the culture of publishing.
Yeah.
There is literature taught in schools,
Yes.
but the culture of publishing is not there.
Yes.
So for us, we wanted to make books cool. We wanted to make publishing cool. So this is a book that we published from Mount St. Mary's College, Namagunga, and Ungodly Hour is one of the poems in there.
Okay.
And the poem itself, as you can see the cover, it is an hourglass, and there seems to be a lost soul that is drowning.
Yes.
And in that poem, these teenagers are talking about the things that they do at home at night when their parents are asleep. You know, so the book talks about the drugs that they take, you know, the nightlife that they have that their parents do not know, and it's
Because they are soul searching.
Yes, because they are soul searching. It's talking about this darkness that they grow up with, that their parents don't ever get to see, because when their parents see them, they are seeing them going to church and they think these are holy people.
Yeah.
Yet ultimately they have these demons that they are fighting, and they come out at night. They come out at that ungodly hour.
Hours. Wow.
Yes.
Let's talk about the
Poetry Bungalow.
Bungalow,
Now,
yes.
These are students of Seta High School, Mukono. And again, from the same idea, promote the culture of publishing among young people. Give them the confidence to know that your words are valuable, that they are worthy of being published in a book and read and taught and loved by others. So Poetry Bungalow was that project that we did at Seta High. And for them now, what we found interesting about these poems is now Poetry Bungalow is this is a mixed school.
Yeah.
So the poems that we have in here
Yeah.
talk about the artificial relationships that students develop in mixed schools,
Yeah.
where the school tells you you should not mix with boys. It's a mixed school, but boys sit the other side, girls sit this side.
We went through it in a Seventh-day Adventist school. Very strict. No, there's always a line drawn in between here, boys.
Yes.
You cross, you get enough stroke. Continue.
Yes, I'm telling you.
Yes,
and this book actually interrogates that culture.
Okay.
So there are these poems that talk about how students live in plastic atmospheres where they are always competing with each other, comparing each other's flaws, and not willing to help each other grow. And yet they're living in an environment that is not allowing them to express themselves
That's the
honestly.
Poetry Bungalow.
That's the Poetry Bungalow.
Wow. Well, if you're joining us, it's a Creative Industry Talk. We're talking to Mr. Peter Kagai Ngobi, who is a poet, a theater poet, a drummer, a lawyer, and he's the man who is the publisher's world. He is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the Kitara Nation, right? And you can see the work of Kitara Nation right out there, you know, showing far and wide. Peter, I want to ask a question coming from the viewer up here that says, thank you very much, Peter, for that answer on the publishing. That's really good. I wish we could have people talk more about this for young writers like some of us. I didn't even know that you have to go through this. It looks so very elaborate, but thank you. My question goes to Peter. Where do you get your information or ideas for your books, Peter?
The
viewer is asking, yes, where do you get your, you know, where do you get your information or ideas for? I guess she's saying, how do you develop your ideas? So I know we talked about it, but you could throw more light on it again.
Everything comes from research.
Yeah.
Research and reading. Yeah. And probably this is what they mean. The process of, when I write a poem, I'm not thinking about writing. Okay, the process of compiling a book is, yes, not the same process of compiling a poem.
Yes.
When I'm compiling a book, I am getting a collective of my thoughts I have gathered over time.
Yeah. And
I want you to know me, yeah, through my poems I, yes, have written.
Yes.
So that means that first thing that I have to consider is what are my interests? Yes. What are the things that speak to me, yeah, when I'm writing? Yeah. You know, because when you want people to know you, you want them to know you about the things that are personal to you. Yeah. So that's the first thing you consider. Second thing you consider is who is going to read? In what language do they speak? In what language do you write? Yeah. So I am a Musoga, but right now I mostly write in English language. Yeah. So when I'm putting my books together, I know that I am targeting English language readers. Where do I find them? How do I find them? How do I market to them? Yeah. So you think about, for me, most importantly, a book, even a poetry book, yeah, it is a storybook. Any book you put together, why they call that book a page turner, yes, is because whatever you put on that page, yes, is going to encourage that person to open, yes, the other page, yes, to go deeper and, yes, deeper. So, yes, you have to be careful on what you put on the first page, the, yeah, second page, the, yeah, third, the, yes, fourth, because it must be connected from the first cover to the next cover.
Eddie, thank you very much. Just before you end the show, can you please ask Peter, when did he first publish his first book and how old were you?
No, I first published when I was, actually, I first published when I was 29. Yeah. My first book, the headline that morning.
Yes.
It was the first book myself published. But before that, my friends in the Lantern Meet had published. I'm a late
Daniel
Nuamanya.
Yes, Daniel Mutembesa.
Yes, they are. Yes, wonderful. Yes. That generation.
Yes, yes. I have been around that circle.
Yes, surprised. I'm surprised. So our first book was in 2012.
Yeah.
And by that time, I was already out of campus. Yes. It was called Broken Voices of the Revolution. Yes. Now, the first book I worked on with my own hands was in 2013. It was for my students, yes, at Nabisunza Girls School. They, okay, were in S4, yeah, and we published for them a book.
Okay. And then I have a last question here, which is coming and saying that, what do you like to do when you are not writing, Peter?
When I'm not writing, yes, what do I like to do?
Yes.
What do I like to do? Anyway,
we know you're already not, okay, practicing law when, yes, you're not writing.
No, yes, when I'm not writing, I am reading. If I'm not reading, I am watching. I am blessed to be a publisher. Okay. So either I'm reading other people's works, or I am scouting for talent. So I'm going through social media looking for writers to publish. My work is, honestly speaking, I am a writer. Yes. I do 99% of my life. I'm either writing or reading.
Yes. And as we hasten to the close, before we take, the next steps of question about, being on stage and performing on stage. Peter, what does one, or rather, what was one of the most, surprising thing that you learned in creating your books, or creating books for others, or writing books for others? What's the surprising thing that you can talk about as a publisher, as a writer, as a poet? Yes,
those ones are many.
Remember, we're talking about defining and distinguishing.
I think
the poet, the prose, and the drama in it.
I think, okay, there are quite a number of surprising things.
Yes.
One is don't ever expect your friends to support you.
Yes.
I think the biggest mistake you can ever make as a writer is to listen to people tell you, hey, you publish, we shall buy. Go, me, I'll buy 100 books.
Yes.
Me, I'll buy 10.
Yes.
And then you bring the book, and then that's when they remember, I have bills to pay. I think for me, the biggest lesson I have learned in publishing is ultimately, if you want to make this a career, and you want it to be a success, avoid marketing to friends and family.
Okay.
Because you first and foremost will avoid disappointment, and that disappointment that brings disillusionment.
Yes, yes.
So when you're target strangers. We see how you go to a show and you don't expect to see only family and friends.
Yeah.
The people that turn up are the people that matter.
Yeah.
So for me, because all over time I've been producing books and wanting my friends, but your friends are your friends not because, your friends like you because of you. Yeah. Not because you are a writer. So when you try to force your passion on them, it might even distance them. I have siblings who have never read my books. And we meet every day, but reading is not their thing. So if I become emotional and I'm like, yo, Enoch, you're my kid, bro, you're not even buying my book, then I'm actually killing off a market and giving off a wrong vibe. Yeah. But if I target the reader, who is a stranger, but that person who loves reading, then that person is always even going to help me grow my business because they're going to market me to other readers. Yeah. So I learned that very fast. Yes. Avoid the obvious. Avoid thinking that your friends will support you, your family will support. They love you as you, not because of you. In fact, they don't even understand your art things. So look for the people that art. And for me, by the way, this is very important because most of us get frustrated when we don't see our friends supporting our hustle. It is not that they don't want to support us. These things are not for them. They also have their own passions. Yes. So I learned that. Secondly,
third, actually.
Money. I want to talk about money.
Yes, third is the money, yes.
Whether you like it or not, you will not escape the question of resources. Yeah. And you must have answers.
And you can't produce all these things without resources.
You must have, unless you're going to wait for manna and quail to drop from heaven, but you must provide the answer to that. No one else is going to. Yeah. Don't think that there is someone with a basket of money waiting to just dish it to you. So you have to lobby. You have to know who to talk to in the industry. You have to know why it's important to start companies, why it's important to have a tax identification number, why it is important for you to know where to get the Uganda registration services, the Euro holograms. You need to know the business. You need to know the industry, so that way you can know who to go to when you need that particular kind of help. Without that, you'll keep on writing in the dark, and that's why your writing will stay.
Talking of that, Peter, we are coming to that part of the show that is really very interesting, and I love what you have said, that the three things I picked from you. Number one, you must love what you're doing. Number two, you must not force your friends to love what you're doing. Target those who you know are going to buy. Know your readers. Yes. And if you know that these are the readers, these readers, when they pick, they will pick and give it to another reader and they will recommend, and that will be number three. You talk about money being key. You are not going to write these things for no money, and if you don't have the money, you cannot produce this. And if it is not sellable, then your friends won't buy it, however good you are. Because Sylvester told us here, look into your phone numbers. We had Sylvester Kabombo here last week, and he talks about if you look into your phone book and you don't find 50 people who can buy your ticket to come to the concert, then you are expecting the festival people to bring you in or the promoter to bring you in, yet you yourself can't have 100 people. Then you need to go and delete your phone book or stopped. If not, go back and start all over again and make sure you create that from there. That's a big lesson we're picking from there. It's all about resources, because the artists have struggled and have failed. Peter, as we close the show, let's talk about your first time on stage in Kampala. You have been working with Bayimba and doing some stuff with Bayimba and training with Bayimba. We talk about the schools. But let's talk about what opportunity did Bayimba actually present to you. And when we talk about Baimba as the foundation, and you said the first time you performed there, what was the experience like? Take us through, and what have you been doing to try and leave your legacy in that space?
Yo, Baimba changed my life. Literally,
Yeah.
it changed my life. And Baimba, I'd always known about Baimba for a while,
Yeah.
and Baimba had known about me as well. I was part of a poetry group called the Lantern Meet of Poets.
Yes.
And so between 2010 and 2014, Baimba used to feature us at the various festivals. Yeah. In 2014, I went solo. And I started, and I was still at Nabisusa at the time, and wanted to do a poetry festival. And I reached out to Baimba for help. And Baimba told me, Peter, one day we shall help you. Maybe you're not in the position to do so. Then in 2016, I'd started Kitara Nation. And this is after I spoke directly to Faizo Chiwewa. I was young then. I was just from law school. I wanted to figure out this thing. And he tells me, Peter, you know what? If you want to figure this industry, we need structures. As poets, you need to create organization. You need to create structures which can also other organizations can interact with. So my friends and I started Kitara Nation. And through Kitara Nation, Baimba managed to link us to Africalia, and that's how we got our first grant that we used between 2017, actually up to 2020 to 2021, to promote poetry programs in schools. And then between that time, between 2016 and 2021 also, we had an opportunity to present, to make theater poetry productions at the various Baimba Festival editions. So it was not even no longer just one call. Now it was contractual. Every year, Kitara Nation had to create a theater poetry product to be showcased at the Baimba Festival. And
this is what we're seeing here on stage.
Yes, and those are the young poets that we worked with from schools, and now they are at the festival. In fact, in one of the slides, you will see my mother on stage with us.
Wow.
Because we also said, no, it's not enough for us to just be working together. Let us invite our parents to come through as well. So for me, the first thing that Baimba, as I said, for me as an artist individually, it helped me recognize the importance of structures, the importance of the importance of coming together as with young poets, for us to be able to create companies that will help us deal with other organizations. Secondly, Baimba gave us the platform to showcase our various talents.
So was this also still at Baimba?
Yes, that's still at Baimba. The poet with a cape is a poet we found from Busoga College, Muiri. And you can see there is a guitarist just behind him playing. So for us, we believe in song poetry, so merging music and poetry. And here he was we were doing a theater. This is actually Arrest the Poem. We were doing it at Lunkulu Festival. Next to him is Luce the poet. At the time, he had dropped out of school and he had nothing to do. And so he felt he wanted to be a poet, and he didn't have to go through the challenges some of us had to go through. And he came to join us. Next to him is Don Wanyama. Don Wanyama was the head prefect at Busoga College, Muiri, that year. And him with the gentleman with the cape at the back. They are the people who took school poetry to Busoga, after this project. Next to them, you don't see the face, the guy with the kanga. He's called Nifrod Odot. For him, he was a poet from Namilyango College. So after this project, he also went back to Namilyango College and started a poetry club. So this is how the project has been running. And now that is the legend himself, Daniel Omara. Daniel Omara started, he was at St. Mary's College, Chisubi at that time. He started over 5 poetry schools before he went to Russia to study medicine and also start a poetry club at his university there.
Wow.
So these are the young people that we've been working with, and through Baimba, we have been able to give them a platform to, first and foremost, see that they are talented, and that secondly, their words can give them monetary value, because some of them are now doing this as a career.
Wow. When you talk about this, what would be your best advice to a young poet out there as we close the show? What kind of platform do they look for? Where do we find you? How does one interact with you? And how do we connect with you at Kitara? What's the best advice you can give us today that when we go and think through it with this COVID-19 pandemic situation and endemic situation that we're in, and the confusion surrounding COVID-19, the uncertainty that lies ahead of us, how does an artist, a poet, stand out tomorrow to say, yes, I can continue to move with this hope and it is possible. And how do I get my work to the hands of people who may not know I exist? Like the same way you got to Faizo, how would we get there on Baimba? Yeah.
Thank you. For me, what the advice I would give to any young poet out there is the advice that I wish somebody gave me. In fact, someone gave me and I rejected it. Learn your craft. Professionalize early. Learn how to professionalize early. It doesn't matter whether you're 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. Learn how to be a professional writer. How do professionals behave? Who do they know? Secondly, invest in knowing the people in your industry. You might be shy. Some of us choose to write because we are shy. We don't know how to express ourselves. And now here I am telling you, go out there and be confident. Be deliberate about growing your reputation and growing your profile as a writer. And that includes talking to people or reaching out to people or researching about people who will help you improve on your profile. But even that is something that you don't just wake up one day and know how to do. Go to the University of YouTube. Learn. Teach, self-educate yourself about marketing, about creative writing. Know the best-selling books out there right now. Know the trends. Know your industry. Know the people. Know the people, because knowledge is the only resource that you have right now that will make you that dream. Every time you put that pillow down and you imagine yourself being as even bigger than Shakespeare or being bigger than Okot Pabitek, that thing that's going to push you is in the ability to be able to let people see your talent, to be able to argue and demonstrate your talent to everyone else. And it won't come from you just writing and putting your poems back in your book and then hiding them in your pillow. You have to be at the forefront of your career.
Finally, Peter, 2021 is coming to a close. We're going into a new year. You've been collaborating with Baimba Foundation. What plans do we have, in the days ahead, if any, and you want to share with us? I see a message here flashing from the messenger. Too many messages, over 500 on messenger. I can't read all the messages on messenger, but thank you very much, everybody. But this one saying that how do I get into the program with Baimba that Peter is talking about? He's a poet. He's a drummer himself. He says he's a drummer artist. I don't know what that means. He's an actor. But want to know, how do they get, and is there any program for them in days ahead? Could you share some more light as we close?
All right. If you're interested in publishing poetry, for example, you can reach us. You can reach out to Kitara Nation. We have a website, our social media spaces. It's all Kitara Nation. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Our email is kitaranation.uganda@gmail.com. Reach out. Let's start a conversation. Yeah. Now, if you're interested in learning how to perform and how to write and how to perform, it's the same way. You can reach us. You can reach out to us on our various media platforms, and we shall be able to help you. Now, for those of you who have programs or projects that you want to run and you want to reach out to Baimba, you can go through their social. The beauty about the social media these days is that it has made it easier. To access some people where previously, you had to write a letter or you had to write an email. These days, just a messenger message is enough to get you, through that door. Yes, and now for those ones who would want to know more about writing and maybe marketing books, publishing, come and we talk. Reach out to us. We have a number of programs that we are running for poets. We have Verse in Verk. We have the Kitara Nation Poets Poetry program that we also run, where we train ourselves and we train young people in theater poetry. Next year, if all goes well, We also
this is next year, 2022.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah.
We are bringing back the culture of poetry recitals if the government allows us to have public performances again. So we are coming up with a weekly poetry show in Kampala, and anyone, as long as you love performing poetry, you can come up with your poem and perform, you know. And again, if you have a manuscript and you want to publish, we are your guys. Just come and we talk.
Thank you very much, Peter, for coming to the show today. And first, I want to put a topic up there and just to remind everyone, you know, that we've been talking about defining and distinguishing poetry, prose, and drama in Uganda and across borders. When we say in Uganda and across border, locally here in Uganda, within the boundaries of Uganda, do we have, is it distinguished, defined? Is poetry clear? Do we see the prose when people perform? Do we understand what it means? That's what Peter has been sharing on the show today. And then, of course, we have been talking to Peter Kagai, who is the co-founder of Kitara Nation. Kitara Nation is one of the publishing house, and Peter himself is the publisher. He's a writer, he's a poet, he's a drummer, he's a theater writer. So if you have projects for him, please reach out to him. And we'd like to say thank you very much to everyone. We would like to say, Peter, that it's been really great, you know, having you on the program today. And I want you to take this moment and close the show with a beautiful poem from Peter that closes. A piece from the Kitara Nation.
Wow. Freedom. Freedom is the music of voices stretched in our throats, reaching out to our hearts since our voices were once ghosts. Freedom is the music of voices remembering the ones we have lost in fright and in fear. Freedom is knowing in the morning you can open your heart's window and let the sun in. Freedom is knowing why a caged bird sings. Freedom. Freedom. That's me.
Thank you so much. We've come to the end of the show today. We want to say beautiful day. Stay in freedom, and please, freedom is opening up your heart very hard in the morning and let the sun in. Until then, Creative Industry Talk has come to an end. Edio Killer and Peter Kagai Ngobi signing out.
One dozen circles content, packagers content, suspense paints, harvest with it, and he's with scandal. All silence, silence, a shell, shot, rattle. Leave the broom in the corner of the room. And when the shadow is behind your heels and the moon is full, go to the well and you will find a black stone. Pick it up. Pick it up. Move and don't look back. Don't look back. Don't look back.
If you look at City Oilers, I mean, we've been, you know, champions for the last, you know, 7 years, and I can tell you that it's because of the players that we have on the team, and I would say that we have, you know, some of the best players in the Ugandan league, you know, on the City Oil. So as a coach, you want to pick your best players in the country to play, and I will not say it is unfortunate that they all come from City Oil, but you know, a lot of those players, you know, are City Oilers, and I really, you know, don't want to see it that because I'm a City Oilers coach and management is City Oilers, it's just purely on statistics. And
in summary, you're saying it's purely based on merit.
It's definitely based on merit.
What does it mean to be a community artist? What does it mean to to work within a community whereby you are all in the same boat, but maybe no, what did they say? You are in the same storm, but in different boats. Yeah. So I think here for me, if you are working for a community, there are certain things that you have to do for the sake of the community, and where you're not expecting to earn from. And if you're working for yourself, it doesn't mean that if you're working for yourself, you don't work for the community, or when you're working for the community, you don't work for yourself. So I think there is a need for a differentiation here in terms of like, what do I do for my community and what do I do for myself? Because at the end of the day, you need to survive. You need revenue. You need to pay your bills or support your mom as well with your siblings. So I think
you are doing that because you want to earn.
Exactly.
So that you can improve onto your life, so that you can, like you said.
So for me, I think the advice would be like, what is the relationship between your community work and the work and your business? You know, if you think your community work is your business, then you have to have a model that is going to work to help you to earn from that community work. But then it ceases to be community and it becomes your business. You get what I mean? So when we work for our communities in the arts community, we work for them. We actually invest in them, you know, and then for us to survive as individuals, we have to find other alternative sources of revenue. And that's where I think Abdul has to think around and say, okay, my graffiti, my community education, my art, my area is where I feed my community with my skill and time and investment. But for me as a person, I need to find my own business revenue.
So in other words, Faisal, what you're saying is that what we're seeing are being put on the screen. The
public art.
So for example, Abdul, what Faisal is saying, that you can sell that art piece. So that should be in somebody's office. That should be in my office. That should be in Faisal's office. That should be in my sitting room. It reminds me that this work is painted by a community, by Abdul in this community, and I have it in my home. Can we hear some more from Jaja? Of course, Jaja is going to play for us that song, Kitenge. You've heard it, the sound, beautiful, and we're going to dive into how Kitenge is going to make it to the world stage as planned by Latif Shah.
Abamina bakyala mwena naddala bali erudde eri mu North London kyembakudira kiri kimu butekubagiza wadde embeera za korona bangi zatutagula kakati tuve mu mayumba kitengi pateyi n'ensonze bumale ate nga tetusaanidde ddala kugisuwa mwani yabagamba okwambala engoye z'emivumba tujja kwambala bitengi byokka designer latifu Uganda omurasita owakabye yatunga mu nnyonyi Maliki Jeni ne Hawa abo basibi banviiri alo tujja kuba nabo Anifa wa makeup Mariamu yedikoleetako ne Popini ebyokulya bingi nnyo ebyekifiirika Madamu Sara Shoshi ebitaddemu omukono Olivia Katharini Nalima Maka manyinga owulira kolono twambala ebitengi byokka kolono twambala bitengi byokka.
We're at level where you can say at least I can earn something from hip hop music or from hip hop as a culture. So we're at that step now. But now finding ways you can do it is very, very important because a business is a commercial activity.
Yes.
Means that if something is not commercial, it's not what?
Yes.
It's not a business.
Yes, yeah.
So how are you going to make it a business? That's where you have to look through, either get people to understand that most of the time start as solo artists. You find that as a solo artist, you have to do everything, everything for yourself.
Yeah.
That era of I remember way back, some people used to say like, I'm looking for like that, like the statement "I'm looking for a manager" used to be very common then.
Yes.
Because people used not to accept that there are no managers until you do something.
Yes.
For
yourself.
Yes, until you do something for yourself. So it used to be a common statement for artists: "I'm looking for a manager." Oh, I'm looking for a manager. I have music. I'm looking for a manager.
Yeah.
But the industry, our sector is different.
Yeah.
You have to do something. If you sit on yourself and say you're looking for a manager, then you never get them.
Yes.
Because most of the managers we have in Uganda, by the way,
Yes.
come after an artist has blown up.
Yes.
He has done something.
Yeah.
And then he's down hiring the manager.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for a manager who's going to hire you and then invest in you, that's going to take time.
Yeah.
So as a solo artist, you find that you have to do almost everything, and then along the way people come and support, So looking at your craft, how you can make a business out of it, either directly or indirectly, it means you need to, you have to think, but you need a team. They might not be your permanent team members, but share a word with someone like, okay, how can we make this a business?
Welcome to the Creative Industry Talk today. My name is Eddie Okela, and my guest on the program today is a poet. He's a lawyer, he's a writer, he's a theater poetry writer. That's the right, correct, title for him. Ngobi Kagai, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for coming, and we're grateful to have you this day on the program. Have you been?
I've been okay. We've seen better days, but here we are still hanging in there.
Yeah. And of course, starting on that lighter note, COVID-19 came and disrupted so many things around us.
Yes.
How have you been able to manage to stay afloat as an artist?
Well, you know, the only way you can the only way you can survive in a disruption is by proving to be a disruption to the force itself.
Yes.
And so for me, to be honest with you, the only way I've been able to survive was I had to adapt my methods of livelihood. As a person who was always performing and being always there, you know, putting my works out there to see how people can come to theaters. Theaters were closed. Now we had to come up with new means, and that is when I went into publishing. So for me, I just started creating products for our audiences to start reading. So if previously they were watching, now we wanted them to read our stuff. They had time to be home, so there were no excuses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. What a very fantastic turnaround on time there. I want to take this moment to welcome all of you guys to the program. The Creative Industry Talk exists for all of you creative people out there, and every creative thinker out there, every creative mind out there. This is a platform for you to share ideas, to expose your work, and to make sure that if you have work, like Ngovi has said, make sure you find a new means to share it out. And this is one of the means to share it out. And we're going to definitely be showing some of his works here while we do the interview. We're live on Twitter, live on Facebook, live on YouTube. Go there, share it far and wide, love it, share it with your grandmother, grandfather, you know, cousins, sisters, everyone all across the world. And to all the guys in the diaspora who always stay awake to watch the show, we're ready to rock and roll. Ngovi,
yes.
Coming back to you.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing you for the first time and I'm wondering who you are,
yes,
what would you say is the right definition of you? Are you Ugandan? Who is Ngovi Kagai? Are you Ugandan? If yes, what are the values that define you? From the ancestry point of view, which part of this beautiful country do you come from?
Yes, thank you. I am Ugandan. I was born in Jinja. I come from Uganda district, but I was born in Jinja. See, if I call myself the book guy, you know, like every time you see Kagai, think of books. Every time you see me walk, every time you see me breathe, every time you see me talk, I want you to imagine Uganda's best literature. I want you to imagine Uganda's freshest young writers. I want you to imagine the future of the literary culture that East Africa portends.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from the family point of view, I mean, are you the firstborn, lastborn? Usually, how did you?
Those things. So I'm the firstborn for my father and mother. Yeah. But by the time those two lovebirds met, they had had children. And my mother had a daughter, and my father had a son. So I am the thirdborn for both of them, but I'm their first as well in a family of 4.
Okay.
Yes.
So growing up, how did you become a poet, first of all?
I became a poet. I'm a late bloomer. I became a poet in my 3rd year at Makerere University. It was not even in the plan to be a poet or to be a writer. I was humbly and diligently studying to be a lawyer. I swear, until one day, some young lady who is, to be honest, I used to fancy, tells me about poetry. And she says, Peter, if you like me, you better come and watch me perform at the National Theatre. And I said, okay, those things are for girls. Who wants to be there to start listening to flowers and stuff? But I went to the National Theatre, and man, from that time, my life changed. Because there are so many stereotypes that were debunked. First, indeed, there was a group of poets, but majority of them were guys. Secondly, there was poetry about culture, about patriotism, about Pan-Africanism, about love. But there was a lot more to poetry than just things that I thought it was just about flowers. And the auditorium was packed to the brim. So I was surprised that there were people in Kampala who, like me, loved literature, loved poetry, but we didn't know that we existed. So that's when I joined the group. For me, the plan was always to be a lawyer. I was raised properly, you know, to get that white collar job. But after my 3rd year, immediately after graduation, I became a writer, because from the time that I first stepped in the theater, I knew this is where I belonged. I felt I had found myself.
Wow, what a fascinating story right there, Kagai. I want to just, you know, before we get into the lawyer point of it, was any of your parents, poets or writers or teachers?
Yes.
You know, because sometimes children tend to gravitate to what is around their space.
Yes.
You know, take us through that.
No, for me, I grew up. My parents are both my parents are primary school teachers.
Yeah.
At least now they are retired, and they were both teaching English language, and so we had so many. For me, where in the house I grew up in, our toys were books. We could destroy everything in the house except books. Our parents loved reading. They treasured books. We saw the way you see parents today on their phones every day. Now, for us in our home, our parents were always reading books. We used to fight for the newspaper every day. Every time our father would come back home, the first thing we'd fight for was the crossword puzzle. We were that kind of family. So we grew up in a family that treasured reading, that valued reading as a vocational activity. And my father, nobody really fancied poetry, but my father had poetry books. So for me, I started reading poetry when I was young, but it was a private fascination. You don't go to your friends, when you're playing soccer and you start telling them, guys, first wait, I want to recite for you William Wordsworth. No. So it was something that I nurtured from home, domestically, but privately. The first time I had a chance to publicly show my love for poetry was in my third year. That is when I found a group of university students who were like me, were passionate about poetry, and we were open. We could share our sentiments, and everyone was okay with that.
Wow. Well, we're talking to Kagai right here on the Creative Industry Talk. Do you have a question for him? Do you have something to say to Peter? He's the lawyer. We're going to get into the lawyer bit of it. Reading to become a lawyer.
Yeah.
And along the way, flipping to writing. It brings me to the first question. When did you first realize you wanted to actually be a writer?
Man, the first time I walked into the National Theatre stage. And for me, what attracted me to it was I was in the audience and I'd been invited by a friend of mine who I didn't know took poetry this seriously, but I sat there and I felt moved by the words these young people were speaking. As I studied literature for 6 years, I honestly had never met a Ugandan poet in blood and flesh. I always thought writers were dead, like by the time they are teaching your book in school at university, you must be dead. So the idea of coming across a writer who was alive was alien to me. So the first time I walked into that stage, I saw what these guys were writing. I felt what they were writing, and I said to myself, I want to do that. I want to have the power to write words and speak them and move audiences the way I feel I have been moved.
Yeah. Wow. And how long does it take you to write a book? You've been publishing books. We're going to get into it just now. How long did it take you to write a book?
No, my first book took me 6 years. 6 years to write and 1 year to prepare for publishing. So I would say 7 years. And that is, taking a period of, learning to find your voice as a writer, learning to find your style, as a writer, learning your market, as a business person, learning about the reading culture. So it took me a period of 6 years to be able to understand that if I'm ever going to produce a book and I want people to read it long after I am gone, this is what I have to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, Ngobi, we're going to take you to this next question about flipping from the law.
Yes.
The first love being the law. And then now the second love became the first love. Have you ever practiced law? What did your parents see that you were not seeing? When you say to them, I'm going to be a writer, did your father or your mother loved it at the time? Can you take us through it? Because most times parents say, we want you to be a doctor. We want you to be an engineer. And most of those, traditional parents like yours back in the days were typical teachers who believed in a career path that either a doctor or a lawyer, and I can see you headed to being a lawyer.
Yeah.
What happened when you finally say, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, but I think I gravitated towards this is where I want to be? What was the reaction from your parents? Just so that we can learn from you, for somebody out there who may not know how to turn around that.
Well, first and foremost, I practiced law for only 1 week. Actually, not even 1 week, I think for 4 days of the first week. And I spent more time writing poems than, than writing legal briefs. All the days that I went to court, honestly speaking, the judge and the lawyers were making submissions. I was writing poems. So at the end of the week, I had to be honest to myself. And this was a question I asked myself. But Peter, what do you really want to do with your life? You are at a law firm, but you are writing poems more than actually attending to the legal work. So why don't you? Why are you cheating yourself? So why don't you focus on this thing that you're calling your passion? Try to nurture it and stop living a fake life because you're pretending to enjoy this lawyering thing, but you are not. So I went and I talked to at the time I was still at LDC. I'd graduated, I had a bachelor's in law, and I was studying to get my practicing certificate. And we were in term 3. And so, but the time, but I was doing some practice, some paralegal work. And I said to myself, I'm not just cheating myself, but I'm also cheating my parents. They had given me tuition to pay. But I made sure I wait for my father to come back home, and my mother was already at home. So I went and I told them, I am done, I am tired, and I didn't eat your school fees.
Here is the money.
Here is the cash. I want to be a writer. Please allow me to drop out of LDC and pursue this thing. And my father asked me the same question, and they were not happy, that to be honest.
You could see.
I could see. But then they could also understand that I wanted to do something that I wanted. So my father asked me the question, what are you going to do now? My answer to him was, what am I not going to do? And because for me, I saw it as an opportunity to explore every other thing I always wanted to do with my poetry. So be it taking it to studio, be it taking it to theaters around the world, be it publishing it in books. I felt I needed the time to grow. I needed the time to unlearn. I needed the time to practice my craft. And so they were not happy, but they were supportive. I mean, there are days I've gone home and I found my mother praying for my book, dedicating it to, and you walk in the house and she say, dear God, make my son a successful writer. So I recognize those efforts that my parents, and the pains that they had to go through to allow me to become the thing that I wanted to be.
Well, I mean, what would be your best advice to a parent out there? I mean, at least you took a different path altogether. You were able to go out, tell your parents, look, respectfully, this is not something I feel I should continue. Allow me to drop out, pursue this, as opposed to going to do law and continue with the practicing certificate and get out of this law school, go to the courtroom or go to the law firm to try and practice law. Yet you know very well that your heart was not there and you're not going to enjoy it. So you definitely navigate the turbulent waters quite very nicely with your parents. Learning from the response from your parents and the decision you made then, what would be your best advice at this particular moment to children who want to make a turnaround? I mean, COVID-19 has come and hit. There is definitely a child out there who has turned around and realized that, you know what? The things I want to do, they wanted me to do at campus, I've since found out that my abilities are here and I want to develop this, and they are watching you right now. What would be your best advice to them? Not to say they should drop off school, but to go through what you've gone through is not an easy journey.
Yes, for me, first and foremost, what I'll tell them is both the parent and the child or the guardian. What I would say is you have a choice to make. Either you want to invest in success or you want to invest in happiness. For me, what I have realized is I wish I cared more about the things that made me happy as a child when I was growing up, so that I even become skilled, more skilled in the things that bring me joy. I wish our society, and this for me goes to the child, to the parent, to anybody invested in education. As a society, we need to start investing more in people's interests rather than society's interests. Because society's interests are static, but individual interests evolve with interests. The way you think of a child in nursery right now, imagine thinking what they're going to be doing 10 years from now, when we don't even know what COVID is going to behave like 2 months from now. So why do we prepare people for a future that we don't even know it looks like? You see, now for all the resources that my parents invested in me being a lawyer, I eventually became a writer. And if they were not the kind of people who were raised or who in themselves were flexible enough to allow me to do, there would have been conflicts that we had. So for me, the advice that I give to parents, to the kids is this: invest in your happiness. There is nothing more important to you in your life than your own happiness. And the things that make you happy, imagine if they're the things that were making you money. Thank you.
Wow. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. This gentleman is on the roll, and I so far love this first part of the interview. I am talking to Kagai Ngobi Peter, who is a poet, a theater poet, a writer, and of course is a lawyer, practicing in the writing space. What a skill right there. And of course, if you have questions and answers, please drop it in there. We want to know whether you have some questions for Peter. If you're watching the show, please share it far and wide. Make sure you don't leave anyone behind. COVID-19 has come and hit, and we need to work with everyone. Stay right there. Creative Industry Talk. We'll be right back after this break. I want to know from you, and of course somebody who's watching this show either from here or a child watching in Myanmar or wherever they're watching, or in Congo where we're watched very much, would want to know, if I don't have the money and I have the passion and I have the zeal and I have the drive, but money is also needed to start it, how do I start? Where do I go? At least for you, your father gave you 300,000 to go and do a course. We don't know whether you spent the whole school fees or you only spent 1 month, took part of the school fees. What happened? How did you start, your fashion? Did you get money from somewhere? How should one start if I want to start? And I was like, Kasozi.
I think we should try to be close to people who love what we do, basically. Yeah. Because even me, I managed to skip from that low level to another level because I had networks. Yes. Just me and Mia meeting Gloria Wavamuno changed my mind. Because I used to be Muyayona Street. So someone introduced me to Gloria Wavamuno, that I'm good, I didn't know. Then, I lost my phone like over 2 months. Yes. So surprisingly, I got a text from Gloria. Customers have been looking for you over the last 3 months. Then my mind was like, the daughter of a tycoon is looking for me. I was even moving on Loom Street. So that changed my mind and started respecting myself a bit. Like, somehow I'm important. If someone important
is looking for me,
that's opened my mind and started to know that I need to be serious, have a skill, have a business, and also work more with my fashion, because by then I was still an amateur. So I never had money to go to buy books, and no designer could invite me, So I got to know basically all the knowledge through stock, but I couldn't afford any book. I could go open and feed the mind. I move out, I make notes before I forget. You get?
Yes.
Yeah.
An army of sheep led by a lion will beat an army of lions led by a sheep. That's a fair.
Yes.
So let's be very honest about this thing, and really understand that you need to understand where you lie and where you fall. So it's very important for us to understand that leadership has to be definitive. You can't be laissez-faire. It has to be definitive. You have to be strong, just like a lion. You know, when a lion meets an elephant or a buffalo or whatever, the buffalo and all these animals run away. And yet, by the way, they are stronger than the lion. They are heavier than the lion. They are more intelligent than the lion. They are taller than the lion. They run away. The lion, because of its attitude, it sees lunch. That is a leader.
Mr. Tony Trav, thank you very much for coming to the CEO bench. And I want to ask you, so if you were elected the President of the Republic of Uganda today, what would be your first State of Nation address? Now, as you look into the camera and close the show.
I think my first State of the Nation address would first of all to... I think I'll just close it down.
I want to know from you, you know, and of course somebody who's watching this show either from here or a child watching in Myanmar or wherever they're watching, or in Congo where we're watched very much, would want to know, if I don't have the money and I have the passion and I have the zeal and I have the drive, but money is also needed to start it, how do I start? Where do I go? At least for you, your father gave you 300,000 to go and do a course. We don't know whether you spent the whole school fees or you only spent 1 month, took part of the school fees. What happened? How did you start, you know, your fashion? Did you get money from somewhere? How should one start if I want to start? And I was like Kasozi.
I think we should try to be close to people who love what we do, basically. Yeah. Because even me, I managed to skip from that low level to another level because I had